Any decision you've ever made is perfect. You've never made a wrong decision. There is never a reason to look back.
I love you so, 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 so much. I love you so, 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 so much. I love you so, 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 so much. I love you so, 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 so much.
Hello, all you positive heads out there. Thanks for tuning your beautiful brainwaves into another episode of the Positive Head Podcast, where we are firmly convinced that creating success and happiness is rooted in understanding the ultimate nature of reality and the fact that as human beings, we are all immensely powerful fractals of the one and only source consciousness, which creates and animates all things. Now, of course, understanding this powerful truth is one thing. Applying this incredibly empowering wisdom to everyday life, well, that's another, which is exactly why we provide you with a fresh serving of soul food for thought 5 days a week to help constantly remind you of what matters most. You are it. And I'm your host, Brandon Beecham. I'm the reflection and extension of you who will be here each Wednesday interviewing a different consciousness changemaker. And on the other 4 weekdays, leading the way to ensure that your perspective is consistently expanded, your vibration is constantly elevated, and your heart is overflowing and full. Also, before we jump into today's episode, I'd like to take about a minute and a half to tell you about a few sponsors that not only help to make it possible to produce this show 5 days a week, but that I'm also genuinely passionate about promoting. The first longtime stellar supporter of the show that I want to mention is Gaia. If you're not familiar, Gaia is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content online with over 8,000 video titles. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. The second sponsor I'm sincerely passionate about promoting is Purium. It's no mystery that bringing your mind, body, and spirit into balance is necessary if a person truly intends to manifest the greatest and grandest version of themselves. So if you've been looking for a way to easily get organic superfoods into your system every day with a simple plan that can help you reestablish a healthier foundation and relationship with food, like I was doing before I found Purium, I highly recommend going to positivehead.com/transformation and checking out the videos and interviews there where I dive deeply into discussions explaining why I take these products every day. And should you ultimately end up on iShopPurium.com to purchase any of their 50 plus amazing superfood products, be sure to use the code POSITIVEHEAD, all one word, for a 25% discount. All right, all you positive heads. On this week's Soul Share, I'm very excited to have Gary Temple Bodley here with me on the show. In the fall of 2013, Gary began channeling a group of non-physical teachers known as Joshua. Soon thereafter, he was compelled to write several books, and today we're going to hear his fascinating story and explore the message that Joshua wishes to share with the world at this time. Hello there, Gary. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hi, Brandon. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this. You know, I caught your documentary. At some point it came across my feed, or I don't know. And then I heard from you, if I recall, about the show, or I don't even remember exactly how we got connected, but I was like, oh yes, I remember seeing your documentary, or at least part of it. And it was, it's such a fascinating, this idea of channeling. And, I share a lot of Abraham clips on my daily episodes where it's just me. I'm talking about something, and then there's so much good content from, Esther Hicks, who channels Abraham. And I've read the book Oneness on the show, which is also channeled material. And I always say when talking about channeling, it's like, some people get really caught up on, the do I believe it or not, and that sort of thing. And I've always said I could care less, would it be any, I could care less what's actually going on. I mean, it is interesting, but really what's the most important is what is the content. And what I've found in my own exploration, some of the most inspired works I've come across, like oneness or Abraham being probably my favorite teacher out there, is that they're claiming this phenomenon to be happening. It's like, okay, well, they're claiming this phenomenon is happening, and the material is absolutely brilliant. Excellent. Sign me up. You know what I mean? Is it any weirder that something would be talking through their bio bodysuit, their consciousness, than the fact that a regular human is standing in front of me talking? Really not. It's all pretty weird when you think about it, right? That we exist at all.
It totally is. And no one thought it was weird. Channeling was weirder than I did. I'm a normal guy like everyone else. And for me to be a channel, it's really taken me 5 years just to get my head around it and to open up and to come out. I actually had to do a sort of coming out of the closet to all my family and friends that I have this ability, that it's coming through me. I don't know how it comes through me, but the message that comes through is loud and clear, and people resonate with it. And I had this great fear about talking to my parents about it, my brother and friends.
Yeah.
But to my great surprise, everyone was really excited about it. And when they started reading the books and reading the stuff, maybe they didn't get it, because you sort of have to get to a vibrational, place where you can even understand even Esther.
Sure.
And those of you who are listening to this right now have come to that place. So you're ready to understand more and more and more stuff. And that's why you're here. And I think a lot of us are called to, seeking more information like this. But I never thought it would happen to me.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably not the type of thing most people like. When I grow up, I want to channel a non-physical entity known as,
right.
Whoever it is. It's like, it's probably, there's more future firemen and astronauts, I would imagine.
Right.
So I want to, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say that it wasn't until I saw Abraham myself. And the way I got there was, we were in business and we did real estate. In 2008, my wife and I lost everything. And so we were living in a friend's beautiful house. It just turned out to be this most amazing house, but really away from it all. We were on the edge of a state park, and a friend of ours brought us over The Secret, and we really got into The Secret. We must have listened to it, 10 times. And then in our own house, my wife finds Ask and It Is Given, the DVD or the CD. And we listened to
that's Abraham, right?
Yeah, and it's in our house. And we had listened to it before, but it never resonated. But now we had somehow come to this, I guess, desire to get back what we had lost. And so this was the next step. And so then we booked a flight to Asheville, and we went to the 2-day event there. And both our lives changed as a result of that. And then really what happened was, I had this urge to meditate, or something was calling me to meditate. And I was hearing that, Jerry Seinfeld was meditating and all the people were meditating. I thought, well, we should try this. And so we started meditating. And then I felt a presence in my head that was undeniable. And it moved around, and it was slowly, and it came every time I meditated. And one day I just said, who is this? And I got back Joshua. And from then it just snowballed. And about 5 years ago, during meditation, Joshua said, get up and write. And I went to my computer and I just typed without thinking about what it was. And 3 pages were written. And it was the first 3 pages in the first book, A Perception of Reality. And
wow.
The next day I wrote, and the next day I wrote, and I wrote every day for 8 weeks. So 56 days, and the entire 300-page book was done. All I did was correct typos and stuff. And it was amazing. So,
wow, what a process. Yeah, another channeled book that comes to mind when you were just talking about that. Are you familiar with Ken Carey?
No.
Return of the Bird Tribes. That's one of my very, very favorite books. It's not super well known, but that was his experience. He was on a farm in the middle of nowhere. Kind of like you're living right now. You and I talked before we turned this on. Funny enough, you live very close to where all my roots are from, in the middle of nowhere in North Carolina. Ken Carey was very similar. He was somewhere on a farm in the middle of nowhere. All of a sudden, this huge snowstorm came in. He had like this all of a sudden he was just like plugged into a light socket, like, I've got to bring this material through. And it's Return of the Bird Tribes. Highly recommend it. It is like poetry. It's a story of Native Americans, that he channeled from 1,000 years ago or more or whatever. And them predicting what's to come now. Even like kind of here's their whole journey, their whole story, and then here's what's coming: the return of the bird tribes, referring to all of us that are incarnating now as the bird tribes to wake up the planet. And I've had some really synchronistical things around the bird tribes, actually, and I actually wrote a song years ago called Bird Tribes, and a lot of synchronicity happened with it. And anyway, what's so great about it, Gary, is not only is the story absolutely amazing, and then sort of now here's the second part, here's what's coming for you all, but it's seriously written, like it's so poetic, it's so beautifully written. So highly recommend Ken Carey, Return of the Bird Tribes, to anyone listening. That's another amazing one that comes to mind.
Well, I had heard you talk on another podcast about how really so much of what comes into literature, music, and stuff is really channeled if you think about it. Mm-hmm. People get into a vibration that resonates with some information that's coming forth, and it just comes through them, whether it's art or music or literature or even a conversation.
Right. In
getting into this space to talk to you, I meditated first. And I said, I set my intentions to have fun and to let everything flow and to be clear and to talk about whatever, we want to talk about. And so the words that are coming to me right now, I'm talking as Gary, but where are those words coming from? My memory, or am I manufacturing them? And what Joshua is saying is that really your mind isn't this thought factory. Your mind is a receiver and a transmitter. And you receive thoughts and ideas based on your state of being. And so if you're in the state of being of fear or some kind of negative emotion, that's all negative emotion really is fear, then you're going to receive urges to change the conditions. Just like if you were in fear, like a real thing was happening, like Joshua will say, if there was a lion in your living room, then that's a rational fear. And you can change the conditions because, that's part of the survival instinct. So you leave. But if the fear isn't rational, like, what someone's thinking about you or asking for a raise or something like that, that fear is not really rational. So trying to change the conditions doesn't really help you. So what you want to do is figure out a way to get into a positive emotional state of being. And so the things that come to you in that positive emotional state of being is inspiration or ideas.
In spirit, right?
Spirit, exactly. Wow. Yeah, that's right. So really, in 5 years of doing this now, I'm sort of, living the Joshua idea. And I've come to realize that there's only really two emotions, either fear or love. It's like not love and hate aren't opposite. Hate is just fear. Any negative emotion is just fear. And any positive emotion is based in love. Yeah. And we are beings of love. So if the only work that we really have to do is figure out a way to stay in this positive emotional state. And in that state, you're in, what Abraham has always said is alignment. This alignment with who you really are and with your inner self and with why you came here and what you're here to do. And then anytime you're in fear, where it's an irrational fear, all you're doing is you're resisting what is happening. And the key to living with how the universe works, with the laws of the universe, is to radically adopting the stance of complete acceptance of everything that is.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, if you act as in resistance to what is, if you're trying to control what is, what you're saying is that bad things can happen to you, and therefore I need to protect myself by trying to control these conditions and these people around me. But if you say that, what you're doing is you're saying you're a victim. And if you understand that you're the creator of your reality, you create by maintaining a vibration that's in alignment with who you really are.
Right.
Now that's easier said than done, by the way.
Yeah, it's one, and that's the whole premise of the show. It's like I even say it in my intro. It's one thing to know all this stuff theoretically, and it's another thing to actually apply it and live it. And that is certainly a daily conscious effort.
Right. Yeah, and it's actually a daily conscious practice. You tend to think of your life in compartmentalized. You have your relationships, you have your career, you have your health, you have your friends and family, and you have your spiritual growth, right? Yep. And so we all spend time in our careers and with our family and with our friends and in our relationships, but a lot of us don't spend, part of each day in our spiritual practice. And I'm not trying to get all woohoo about it, but like meditation is one daily practice that everyone can be doing. And I think there's really nothing that can change your life more than meditation.
It's sending a message to, higher self, universe, whatever you want to call it. Like I care enough about myself. I love myself enough that I'm willing to make the time. It's like, I think it was Osho that said, if everyone should meditate, 20 minutes a day, unless you're too busy, and you should meditate an hour a day.
That's right.
So it's like, making that energetic statement. And people, I think a lot of times, Gary, get hung up on the idea of I'm not doing it right, or it's not. I know for me, I'm someone who's got a lot of energy and a lot kind of flows through me. And so it's been challenging at times to calm myself down, And I always think back when I was a little kid in church, my grandmother used to always put her hand on my leg and be like, stop idling, because I'd always be like shaking my leg, It's like, it's just energy, right? And there's a lot of it. And so I kind of got this story a while back, like, oh yeah, meditation just too hard for me because I can't quiet my mind and calm down enough, And that was just a story. And where I'm at now with it is like just the act and intention of meditating. There is no wrong way. There is no like just being with yourself in setting that in motion is such a powerful beginning to, and it's making a statement, right? That I am, I'm not going to judge myself as doing it right or wrong. I'm just going to make the time to be with myself. And the more, of course, you do that, the more you start learning techniques and ways to quiet the mind, and it goes deeper and deeper. But it's this very, there's layers to the onion, right? And so just starting somewhere is the thing that I've learned firsthand is the most. And to be quite honest, I still have days where like that energy gets the best of me, and I'm like, okay, I can meditate before I get out of bed, or run and go do all the things I'm so excited to do, and I'll jump out and run and do all the things I'm so excited to do. But when the days that I set that energetic, boundary and like, nope, I'm going to stop. I'm going to start my day this way. It sets you on a totally different footing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the universal thing about meditation is that it's difficult for everyone in the beginning. And if you just stick with it, if you start with, a minute a day and just, and then I find that the guided meditations work best for me. And I like listening to those. And I like playing with the idea of being able to suspend thought for a couple seconds, and then suspend and then come back and then think about those thoughts and then suspend thought for a few more minutes. But there's no wrong way to do it. And after you've gotten through, say, 30 days, then you start to look forward to it and you realize that there's something else going on there.
Yeah.
And I think that for a lot of people, that they can understand that there's the thinker and then there's something else going on inside that. Yeah. And I think that other thing that's going on is this communication that we were inherently supposed to have with our inner selves and our guides and supporters and all that. And that the way we approach life now tends to be more practical and get things done and look outside of ourselves. But taking a little bit of time to go inside yourself, that's where really your resources are.
Yeah, right. It's sort of in alignment with the idea of working smarter, not harder. So many people are just like busy, trying to shuffle things around external of themselves. And when you start realizing like, oh, it's actually, there is no out there, that's springing forth from my internal state. Well, what becomes the most important thing that you can do? Set the sort of vibration of my internal state. And that's how I see it. It's a work smarter, not harder.
Yeah. Your reality is a reflection of your vibration, and your vibration is the culmination of your beliefs, primarily your intentions that you set prior to your birth, and how you're being, and how you're reacting to things. And so a lot of us something will happen and we'll say that we'll judge that as good or bad. So it's a very dualistic approach to life where you say, okay, that's a good thing and that's a bad thing. And anyone would say that that's good and anyone would say that's bad. If you got $1 million in the mail, everyone's going to say that's good. If you got in a car accident, everyone's going to say that's bad.
Right.
That's not true. Everything is neutral. Nothing has any inherent meaning. You bring the meaning to it, which means that as the creator of your reality, you can control what anything means based on how you frame it and how you approach it. And if you think it's wrong, 100% of the time, it's because you have some limiting belief.
And you get the outcome that's in accordance with that. Like you get the experience that is you've chosen a certain perspective and story, and you framed it a certain way, as you put it. And now you're going to feel you framed it this way. All right, here's all the results that match that framing, and now you are confirmed in your decision.
And that's your reality, right there. That's your reality.
Yep.
But what Joshua has said is that event that brings up emotion. Any event that brings up emotion is called a manifestation event. And in order for you to get where you want to go, to manifest the desire that you have to become a vibrational match to it. And so the universe has this great system of giving these events to you, of setting up conditions so that you run into these events so that you can see how you're being, right? And you can see yourself from another perspective. And if you say that something's wrong and you fight against that thing and you say, that person should never have done that, or that thing should never have happened to me, well, you're not really processing that limiting belief. You're holding on to your own limitation. But if you can look at it in another way and say, you know what? That came up for a reason. Let me think about what that reason is, or why do I think that's wrong? And then you have a chance to look at yourself from a different perspective. And that's what changes your vibration, because you're now not accepting your beliefs. You're actually processing those things, and you're figuring out if they're empowering or if they're limiting, because that's the only thing that matters.
Right. Yeah. And from my perspective, it's sort of the difference between aligning yourself with the way higher self views reality, or sort of taking the narrower perspective and view, or lens, if you will. And it's like, so it's always that question. And I feel like we're in the process of allowing more of our expanded self that's beyond the self that was sort of looking out these eyes when I started this journey. And it's like, oh, we're going to let more in. We're going to let more in. We're going to let more in of your expanded self. And the more you're choosing to see things the way your higher self or expanded self sees things, and as in this is what, the question being, why is this happening for me, not to me? And as you do more of that alignment, well, along with that comes all the sort of gifts and powers, if you will, that your expanded higher self has. You're leveling up, and you get all the benefits that come with that, that expanded self.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. If you think about it, if you believe that you're just alone here, going through life, trying to make it on your own, you are viewing your own life from a very limited perspective, just sort of like a mouse in a maze trying to, from your perspective, looking at the mouse, you can see easily how the mouse can get out. But from the mouse's perspective, it seems like it's in a box with no ending.
Right.
So if you can raise your perspective to see that possibly things are for you, possibly you have guides and supporters helping you, possibly there's more information that you can attract based on how you're being in life, then every time you do that, when you start with meditation, when you start a daily practice of some spiritual practice, you start to get these ideas and this inspiration that comes to you, which is coming to you all the time now. But if you don't really realize that it's coming to you, you sort of discount these ideas thinking that you made them up. And now when ideas come to me, I understand that it's inspiration. And so if it's like, call my dad, I just pick up the phone and call my dad. Instead of saying, well, he's, maybe sleeping, or he's probably doing something else, or I'm going to get stuck on the phone for an hour talking to him. I just say, I'm going to do it. Whatever that is, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take action.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, when you start to really pay attention to the ebbs and flows of energy, like why all of a sudden do I feel this strong desire to do this thing that really doesn't, from a logical perspective, it's not necessarily adding up. I found it's like you start noticing these subtle nudges that are coming to you, and if you follow those nudges, they're pushing you somewhere interesting, and there's something there for you, whether it's coming from your guides, wherever it's coming from. But I think that's something that as you take on this expanded perspective we're referring to, that's something that becomes more and more. You become more and more sensitive to these energetic nudges to do things, and taking the logic piece out of it so much, and following the energy, right?
Right, because really, your inner self and your guides have this higher perspective. They know what you want and how to get you there. You only know what you think you want. And that's what's come to a big, distinction in my life here too, is I used to be, really into writing goals and making things happen and doing all that stuff. And that's what I thought I wanted. When I relaxed around that and I said, I'm just going to go with the flow. I'm just going to make every day and live day by day without worrying up the future or trying to make things happen. Let's see what happens. And so, my life that's unfolded, had I known what was going to happen 5 years ago, I would have probably put the brakes on it. I would have said, that's not what I want, right? I want to be a millionaire. But how it's worked out is that I've experienced more connection to people, more abundance, more freedom, more passion in my life, more bliss in doing what I'm doing in every minute than all those years of building businesses and having employees and, making money and buying things and, making it look good to a life that is really what I intended prior to my birth, which is, if you think about it, you set these, Abraham tells us all this, you set these intentions prior to your birth to express our love to others. And when Joshua says love, they mean acceptance. Love and acceptance are the same thing. So when I say I love you, what I'm saying is I totally accept you for who you are, and I don't want you to be different than you are, and ourselves as well. And then to experience abundance and freedom, and to expand in joy, and then maybe to explore some passion, some part of physical reality in more detail. Now, if those things unfold for you, well, what could be better than that? It's not going to be better to own a yacht or to be a millionaire, or to be on TV or anything else. That's what you really want.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. And I think, more and more people are waking up to this and freeing themselves from this, this illusion of just chasing things your whole life, getting to the end of your life and saying, oh my gosh, I spent my whole life chasing something that didn't even really matter. It's more and more people are exiting the hamster wheel, and it's a beautiful thing to behold for sure. I have a question for you. I'm curious, as you've went down this path, I'm curious about the line between, so right now we're talking with you as Gary. In a few moments, you're going to switch over and bring Joshua through, which is exciting. I'm curious though on sort of where that line is. Like, do you find when you're bringing Joshua through, there's a lot of information that you hadn't considered before, or are you present? Are you present? Where is Gary when that's happening? Is he sitting right there on the sidelines? Is he sort of checked out and doesn't remember unless he hears it recorded, or what? Explain that to us.
What I'm doing is I'm trying to maintain my focus so that I bring forth the thoughts that I'm getting as clearly and articulately as possible. It comes out really fast. And when I first started doing this, it was just typing. It was writing. And I started a podcast, and we have this podcast on the Law of Attraction Radio Network. And Jules Johnson is a hypnotist. And so I went on the Law of Attraction cruise, and I was one of the speakers there. And so she goes, I'm going to bring Joshua through speaking. And I said, well, I don't think that's possible, but whatever. And she says, well, I'm going to hypnotize you. And I'm like, I don't believe in hypnotism. It's never going to work. So she did 10 seconds and then Joshua was speaking through me. And so when I'm typing, it is just so easy. And when I'm speaking, it's a little bit more of a concentration thing. I've been doing it now for about 3 years, and it's getting better and better and better and better. But yeah, it's all new information. All of us who are asking Joshua questions, and we do a podcast with Joshua Live every week, brings Joshua to receiving this information and bringing it forth. So our questions allow them to access information that's never been reached before. You might have heard Abraham say that all thoughts that have ever been thought still exist. And Joshua says, not only that, but all thoughts that will ever be thought exist. And it's up to the person to become a vibrational match to them. So if you're going to ask Joshua a question, Joshua will reach this place that will bring forth an answer in a way that's never been heard from before. And in order to understand it, you have to be on that vibrational line. So I have to, that's why I can't speak French. Like, if there's tons of French people interested in law of attraction, by the way. And so I get these questions in French, and I have to use Google Translate to do it. But I can't speak French, and I can't speak about, I can't get the lottery numbers. Also because you can't really go in the future, because the future is changing every second.
Indeterminate, yeah.
Indeterminate, right? You could see someone's trajectory and look at that, and maybe you can guess where they're headed based on their vibration, right? But yeah, every moment is completely new. So, did you ever hear Esther interview by Oprah on the radio?
I think I caught at least a part of that at some point, but I don't really recall anything about it. Other than I think her origin story, maybe. I feel like I might have heard Oprah talk to her about, when it all began or something.
It was interesting because Oprah didn't want to do it on TV because she thought it was too weird for her audience. And so Esther was speaking as Esther in the beginning, and Oprah's asking questions, and Esther's answering them very eloquently, and then says, but let Abraham come in and ask those questions to Abraham. And when you start the transition, in the old days, Esther would have this accent. And so
I remember.
It's very clear we're Abraham. And then now Esther and Abraham sound the same. And I think that Gary and Joshua sound the same, except Joshua is a little bit more enthusiastic and louder.
Well, Gary's got some enthusiasm going, so it sounds like we're going to be stepping it up a notch.
We'll see. Yeah.
So if you feel like now is a good time, maybe we should usher Joshua in.
Okay, that'd be great. It's going to take me about 30 seconds or so, and then I will close my eyes, do some deep breathing, set my intentions. We always set the intentions ahead of time to have a fun conversation and just to let it go. There's no questions that are off the table. You can ask anything, and
Excellent.
They will tell you what they want to tell you, not really what you want to hear. So it's fun.
Excellent.
All right, so here we go. We are thrilled to be here.
We are thrilled to have you, Joshua. Thanks for stopping by.
There couldn't possibly be another place in the universe that we would rather be right now.
Well, that makes me feel warm and fuzzy.
The level of excitement that we feel right now talking to you, talking to all those who are interested in learning more about the laws of the universe, the mechanism of physical reality, how this whole system works, an approach to life that works with the system as opposed to approach to life that works in contrast against the system of the universe. More and more people are seeking this information. They're seeking it in order to solve some problem they think they have. And the solution to the problem that they have is to understand that there are no problems. There is no wrong. There's nothing important or serious going on here. It's meant to be fun. You're playing a game, and you've all signed up to join in this game together in the amusement park called physical reality.
I like the sound of that. Lest you become like a child, you can't enter the kingdom of heaven, right?
You notice how the children act. They're full of exuberance. They have no judgment when they're young. They have no desires other than to have fun in the day. If you could be more like the children, then your life would unfold as you intended prior to your birth. You have to be taught a different approach to life. But the natural approach to life, where you accept what is as perfect, you accept yourself as perfect, you accept that nothing wrong can happen to you, you accept that you don't have to make anything happen, and that you can accept that this universe is based on the idea of receiving, not efforting and doing and struggling and surviving.
Yeah. I love that. I have a question for you, Joshua. So I had an individual on the show recently, a guest, who ended up getting very involved in the Positive Heads Facebook group, which is, a private group of people connected to the show. And he's kind of a very interesting character, created a lot of upheaval with some of the things that he was professing very aggressively. And one of those was the law of attraction is actually complete bullshit. There is no law of attraction. So I'm curious how you would respond to this individual who is, adamantly teaching this to anyone who will listen.
We would say that 100% of everything everyone always says is correct. You would never argue with anyone ever. Now, the whole point of physical reality is to come in at a unique perspective, a perspective that has never been seen before. So if you all came in and agreed with everyone on every single topic, then there'd be no purpose in physical reality because there'd be no possibility for expansion. You expand because you come in with a unique perspective, and you develop that perspective mostly of who you are in relationship to source, to the world around you, to the universe, that sort of thing. Your perspective as Brandon is as worthy, but no more worthy than anyone else's perspective. So those who come forth saying that there is the law of attraction have one perspective, and those who resonate with that idea can possibly work with that perspective to enhance their experience of life. And those who come forth to say that they are skeptical of such things have another perspective. And the interplay between the two perspectives is what gains definition and allows people to create desires for more information. And we congratulate anyone who stirs up the pot so that you and the others who disagree can reach for further clarification.
Yeah, I love that answer. It's a powerful one.
There is no point in resisting anything. So if you were to say that your life would have been better had this person not come and disrupted everything, then what you're saying is that you have a slight limiting belief that other people have the ability to create new reality and that what they're creating is actually wrong. Now, if you had a higher perspective on all things, you say, this is part of the process to bring me and my group to another level of awareness. And without this person stirring things up, we would never make it to that level. And so in hindsight, say it's 20 years from now, you look back and you go, isn't it amazing what happened as a result of this person? This person allowed me to seek more information. And so I went, found this other person, found this other person, found this other website, found this other teachings, found this thing, was interested in this, and it brought me and my group to another level.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that, and I'd love to hear your perspective on that was challenging about it, and I certainly was aware enough as it was unfolding, as this person got more and more dissonant and sort of, you know, had shared at one point these perspectives very powerfully delivered, and then all of a sudden you see this very dissonant character appearing who is sort of, you know, on the attack from some perspectives, where it just created a lot of dissonance in the group. And then you get to the point, it's like, okay, I know this is a growth edge that's happening here. You know, as I like to say, smooth seas never made for a skilled sailor. And so... But then you have a lot of people who this is a space to them that is really safe, you know, and generally very vibrationally feeling good, if you will. And now all of a sudden you've got a hurricane, a tornado rolling through here, just sort of picking everyone apart and just angry and, you know, reactive and all these things. And so then the question comes up is, okay, when do you know, the two questions that came up for me the most in this, Joshua, was, okay, when do you, is enough? You know, if someone comes into your house and slaps you enough times, when do you show them the door? And also, it really got me questioning myself, like, how much have I created this person by not trusting them, in a sense, having that, you know, the line between intuition and, you know, because my intuition at first was like, something's off, something's a little off. And a lot of people said that, you know, after the fact, after this little event was over, you know, but then of course I sense something being off, but then I come and, okay, I'm creating everything. Everything's a prop in my movie. What if, did I create that version of them, in a sense? Would it have been different? You know, so where do you, I guess this is kind of a couple different questions. The line between intuition and my responsibility in creating how they show up by my beliefs about them, right? Which is what he claimed a lot of. You believed these things about me from the get-go, and he showed to be that and more, right? But how responsible am I in that? And then when do you sort of remove yourself from a situation? You know, those are the two growth edges that happened for me with this experience.
What is most important in this idea is the fact that you are being this example of one who looks within and says, how did I contribute to this? What was in this for me? What am I believing? What am I thinking? Rather than saying, this person is wrong, let's just ban him off the top.
Right.
So what you, as you well know, are a great and powerful teacher. What you're doing is you're teaching by your example here. Your example that I am ready for something more to happen. I attracted this in the least resistant way possible, which was this person. It could have been much more resistant than this, but this was a mild, in real terms, resistance. And now I have dipped into a low emotional state of being. I felt that this is wrong. I have gone inside. I've looked at my limiting beliefs. I have realized this is happening for me. I may not be able to say exactly how it's happening for me, but I realize that there is some benefit of this. I know that I'm looking at this from a limited perspective, but if I look at it from a higher perspective of how things are shaping out, how things have always shaped out in my life, how things are always turning out for me, that I know that something positive is going to come from this. Now, once you enter the positive emotional state of being, where you don't see it as wrong, but where you see it as, where are we going from here? Then you will receive inspiration. And that inspiration may come to you to say, enough is enough, let's move on. This person had served his purpose, let's move on. We're ready for something new. We created a new vibrational energy, and here we are.
Yep. Yeah, and that's sort of how it unfolded. As I look at it, it's just all unfolded as of the time of this recording within the last few days. It's just started to cool down. We sort of ended up doing a poll to ask, and I even, out of respect for him, even though there was a lot of turbulence happening, I said, I'm going to do a poll if you're okay with it to see if you should stay or leave. And 2.5 years with this group, never done anything like this. And people ultimately, the vast majority wanted to see him, leave the group. But I looked where I'm sitting with it now is like, I could have done better creating how I created him from the start. But once I have kind of went down a certain rabbit hole, it's like the cat's out of the bag. He's become this character, this version of all the potential versions of him has now showed up, and there's really nowhere left to go because he's just, slapping everyone in the face. So it take time. Yeah, need to exit him.
We'd love to interject here and say that you could not have done anything more perfect. That the way you handle it was absolutely perfect. That the belief that you could have or should have been any different than you were is just an idea based in a bit of fear. And this is the thing that people get to when they are learning about the law of attraction. They're learning about mindfulness. They're learning to meditate. They're going within. They're spiritually growing. They're receiving new ideas. They're embarking on new endeavors. And then they hit these manifestation events that bring forth a limiting belief. And then they say, had I been different, I wouldn't have faced this manifestation event. It would have been different. And I assume that it would have been better. And we say the manifestation event and how you acted was all perfect. It all worked to move your vibration to the next step so that you'll be ready for what you're asking for. And so any decision you've ever made is perfect. You've never made a wrong decision. There is never a reason to look back, because when you look back and say, this course of action led to where I am now. If I chose a different course of action, I believe it would have been better. And we say that's a false premise. That where you are now is exactly where you're supposed to be, because you wouldn't be here now. You wouldn't be having this conversation now. You wouldn't be in this state of life. You'd be in some other state, and you cannot know if that would be better or worse. You could only judge that would be better or worse based on a limiting belief.
Yeah, I love that. And when you understand that every moment is as divine as any other moment ever has been or will be, it becomes a fool's errand to start thinking in that way. Really, when you truly understand this truth,
we will go on to say even more specifically that you, the day you were born, were perfect as you were. You did not get any better when you were 1 year old or 2 years old, or learned to walk or learned to talk or went to school or graduated college or any of these things. You did not get better when you were married. You did not get worse when you were divorced. You did not get better when you completed this course or that course. All you did was expand. You're perfect now. You'll be perfect in the future. You're going to be perfect in every moment as you are. You can't get better. All you can do is have an expanded view of yourself, which is wonderful. But you expand, whether you expand in great heights or what you see as great depths, it doesn't matter. What we say, the only thing that matters is how you feel. And if you can feel good, if you can feel joy in your expansion, then that's what you intended prior to your birth. But this idea of self-improvement is not really possible. You're not going to get any better than you are now, because you're perfect as you are now. And that means that every moment in your life is this perfect moment.
Yes. I love that. All right. Well, now seems like a good moment to take a quick minute to tell those of you who aren't familiar a bit about our sponsor, Gaia. I've been a big fan of Gaia for many years now, which is why they're the only content provider I've ever reached out to in regards to potentially supporting this podcast. So needless to say, I'm very excited they're now supporting the show. Gaia truly is my personal go-to source for streaming consciousness content on the web. They have an incredible 7,000 plus exclusive videos covering 5,000 years of wisdom. Just to give you an example, on the show Missing Links, the incredible researcher Greg Braden explores all the biggest questions concerning who we are, where we come from, where we're going, by connecting the missing links between science and spirituality to complete our understanding of humanity's history and to better understand the interconnectedness of all things. Awesome, right? And that's just one example. As you guys constantly hear me say, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration. And if you're looking to go deep down the rabbit hole to do so, then Gaia is the best place I know of to do it, period. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. I'd like to hear you speak a little bit on this idea of, positive and negative. And it's one that seems to come up a lot. And this is another topic that's come up recently. And, this idea that, a lot of times because the name of the show is Positive Head, people instantly will assume like, oh, well, you think the only thing you should ever do is be positive, right? And when in reality, the way I view it is when you take on this expanded perspective that we've been talking about on this whole episode of this podcast, with both Gary and Joshua and me, all of us have been saying sort of the same thing, is this idea of, it's, there's no such thing. It's always happening for you. It's always in something that is quote unquote negative or hard or challenging is oftentimes what you need way more than a nice donut on a on a cool morning with no drama whatsoever, where things are just like, this is perfect. Like, so it's all causing growth. And so it's not even about positive and negative from my perspective as much as, cause what's challenging or could be, quantified as negative is causing you to grow, and therefore the real aim is to be at peace with what is, right? It sort of transcends this idea of good and bad, positive and negative. It's accepting. A master embraces whatever shows up because they know it's exactly what they need to lead them to the next greatest and grandest version of themselves. And that's my perspective on it. I'd love to hear you speak to that.
The way to everything that you want is through the absolute and complete acceptance of what is. Acceptance is love. Fear is resistance. If you judge something as wrong, what you're saying is, I fear that thing. If you judge something as bad, what you're saying is, I fear that thing. If you judge something as positive, what you're saying is, I accept that thing. I believe that thing. And so you can see two people, two countries on opposite sides in a war, and what's positive to one is negative to the other, and vice versa. And so it's from that perspective that you understand what is good or bad. You're saying, I fear it or I accept it. And in the acceptance of all that is, you exist in a state of love. Since you are a being of love, you are all limitless, magnificent beings of pure positive love and acceptance. That's who you are as you exist in the non-physical. In the physical, you purposely take on limitation so that you can peel away that limitation and live as the authentic version of you, which is the limitless nature of who you are. So in your society, you tend to judge things as good or bad, right or wrong. That's a dualistic approach of the victim. Of the creator, you now position yourself as having sole responsibility for every single aspect of your perception of reality, which means that if something happens, you understand that you choose whether that is good or bad for you, whether that's something you prefer or not prefer. Now, if you prefer it, that's fine. If you don't prefer it, leave it alone. This universe is an attractive one, and the universe is neutral. Therefore, the universe does not know what you think is good or bad. It only knows what you are focused on. And so you are focused on a war on drugs. The whatever aspects of that you think are wrong are going to grow larger. Right. Whatever aspects of that you think are right are going to grow larger too. There is no pushing away. It's a universe of receiving. If this was not a universe of receiving, then it would make sense that whatever you wished for would come true. But think about it this way. If you could push away that which you think is horribly wrong, then you would start with the most horrible things. But once those things were eliminated, then you would go down the list, and you would soon eliminate all rain, all cloudy days. And then there would be all kinds of all people that you didn't like, and all people that were a problem, and all issues, right? And you understand from a victim's point of view, this is what they want to do. From a creator's point of view, you understand that if it comes into your experience, you have this option of how you react to it. The universe is watching how you react to it. If you react to it as if it's wrong, then the universe understands you have a limiting belief. That limiting belief needs to be modified in order for you to move to where you want to be. And so the universe will bring you more and more and more instances of how that's wrong, louder and louder and louder and louder, until one day you've got some chronic physical ailment, and then it captures your attention. Or one day you get in a car accident, or one day you get divorced, or one day you get fired from your job, or one day something big happens so that you can actually see how you're being in response to what you're putting out there.
Right.
Now, if you don't understand that this is how the universe works, then the control mechanism is all you have. But when you realize that this is a attractive, loving, giving universe that allows you to explore reality in any way you choose, the options are all open to you, then you can start going inside, choosing the vibration that works for you, meaning that choosing how you feel as the most important thing, and then doing whatever you can do to feel good, to maintain a high emotional state of being, then allow your life to unfold naturally.
Yeah, absolutely profound when you get to the point that you understand all of this. And it's like, it seems like we talked about earlier, it's like you understand it from one level. And, you know, what I've seen with a lot of people is they really get this until, you know, you get to hot buttons for certain people. It's like, I always say there's never been a victim in all of eternity, and people, people will like, yes, yes, yes to all of this stuff until all of a sudden something comes close to home that really stings, right? Or, starving children, or, someone that had something really horrific happen. And then it could sort of like can go out the window, right? Like it's so upsetting to someone that they'll sort of agree with it up to the point that there's something horrific that happened, and then it's like, oh well, then in this case it happened to me, it didn't happen through me. And so I'd love to hear you talk about that, how your ideas on it all happening through you, as opposed to in this idea of victimhood, and if it exists at all.
There is no wrong with living life as a victim. That life is still expansive, and the vast majority of humanity has always lived that way. However, living life as the creator of your reality, where you have sole responsibility over every aspect of that reality, will lead you to more joy, and will lead you to more ease, calm, and less fear than the approach of the victim. Yet, this reality is designed to show you your limiting beliefs, show you your limitations. And as you peel away the little ones, okay, I see this comment as not such a bad thing. Okay, I know that person didn't mean it this way. I know that that's their issue. I know it doesn't have anything to do with me. These little things that you can let go, as you get better at that, you're going to start to feel good. Then when you encounter some more intense limiting beliefs from these manifestation events that happen, you're going to feel intense negative emotion. And your society has designed itself to become numb to negative emotion. And what we say is, you really, really want to feel your negative emotion intensely. When you were a baby and you were a little bit hungry, you screamed. When you're a little bit hungry now, you don't even whine. We want you to notice your negative emotion, be very uncomfortable with it, and realize that it is a indication of a limiting belief. You want to know when these things happen. You will never be done rubbing up against your limiting beliefs. You are peeling the layers of an infinite onion. However, your relationship to negative emotion is that it's something to be feared and something to be avoided. And we say it's nothing more than guidance. If you are receiving negative emotion, you're just having a difference of opinion with how your inner self sees that same situation. And this will call you to look at it differently. If you just think of it differently, think of it from internally, and don't spend too much time lingering in negative emotion. Get back to the positive emotional state of being that is your natural state quicker. You will find that your life feels better to you. And if you understand that this is all just a fun, exciting, interesting spiritual journey where you're not supposed to know what's coming next, but that you're paying attention to how you feel, then your life will unfold as you intended prior to your birth. And if it does that, then that life will feel very, very good to you.
Well said. Very, very profound. So one of the things that I'm really curious about is, Joshua, is sort of the perspective from where you reside versus where I'm currently residing. In my perspective, fully in 3D life on Earth. I'm just curious a little bit about the history of your journey as a collective and where you're at.
We will say that we are a collective of teachers and that you are in our family of teachers, as is Gary, as is those of you who are listening here. You may not see yourself as a teacher in the traditional school sense of it. You teach through your alignment. We maintain a very aligned, high vibrational position, ready to assist you with anything that you ask. And we maintain our alignment because, frankly, in the non-physical, there is nothing to fear. Like you, we are eternal. We have always been. We are interested in certain things. We are interested in your progress towards the slow evolution, and we shouldn't say slow because it's actually happening very quickly, of fear to love. All humans are on this path from fear to love, from this idea of victimization and control to full acceptance. And never before in the planet's history have more people been seeking a new approach to life that aligns with the universe so that they can move to the love side of the spectrum. As you move to the love side of the spectrum, you see things from a higher perspective. You receive this information as it is natural to you. You all have access to it. And some of you may say, well, it's easier for me to read a book or listen to a podcast or listen to a teacher or listen to Brandon than to summon it forth myself. It's easier for me to believe it that way. But we say it doesn't matter where you get it from. As long as you are holding the desire for more information and for a higher perspective and to see that things are good and right as they are and to see that there is no wrong or problems, then you will be led step by step. And so you were led to this podcast. You will be led to books that Brandon suggests. You'll be led to different things. And that is your spiritual journey in this lifetime. Along the way, you were going to bump up against your limiting beliefs. And you have two ways to think about those things from the higher perspective, imagining yourself from the non-physical point of view, realizing that this life is but a blink of an eye and that you've lived many lifetimes before. You'll live many lifetimes in the future. You come and go with ease as you please.
Yeah. Wow. I heard something said the other day, and I can't even remember where I heard it. And it's just an idea or a theory, but I thought it was an interesting one that, and curious if you'll speak to it. The statement was that time, or the experience of time in a sense, and of course it's confusing for us to think about being in a state of no time, living in a 3D reality where time sort of is governing everything. But that the concept I heard was that 70,000 Earth years is like, to a soul on the other side, is like equivalent of like a year and a half there. If you were to create some kind of comparison, if this could even be done, right? Like a year and a half is 70,000 years here. So when a soul departs into 3D, it's like, hey, I'm going to go down the street real quick to 7-Eleven and I'll be back in a minute, right? Because we don't live even close to 70,000 years. So I'm curious about that whole idea in general, how time is experienced here versus there.
Well, first of all, time is a construct of physical reality so that you can gain a new perspective on who you are as you relate to the world around you. In every moment, you have a new perspective because in every moment, there's a new time. With every step, you see things differently. So space and time allow you to have a new perspective. That's all that's going on in physical reality, is giving you the chance to see your life from a new perspective. The way you saw your life when you were 5 is different than the way you saw it when you were 15 or 25. It's a different perspective. The way you saw yourself when you were 3 feet tall is different than you saw yourself when you were 5 feet tall. The way you saw yourself in this town as opposed to when you travel to this other town is a different perspective. But if you think about a single day in your life, think of that as a single lifetime. And so one day isn't really important. Sometimes you have really impactful days, and sometimes you have days where you just sleep all day. But one day in and of itself just is an accumulation of a life. And the same is true with your lives. One life may be very traumatic. One life may be very easy. One life may be very impactful. One life may be very abundant. Life may be very much based in lack. And each of these lives adds up to give your higher self, your inner self, your soul, this higher and higher understanding of who you are as you relate back to source. And you are source anyway. All it is, and all we are, is these little points of source. But we're all one, all connected, and all source. And you'll see this more clearly when you decide to return to the non-physical. Until then, don't worry about it. Think of it this way. Think of physical reality as a day when you're going to Disneyland. And so you buy your ticket and you enter the gates, and you are as worthy as anyone else who's bought their ticket. And you can do anything you want to do. And when you start going to Disney World, Disneyland, you ride the little rides. You ride the teacups, and it's a small life. Right. And you look at the Matterhorn, you say, there's no way I could ever ride that ride. And as you go along, you ride the more challenging rides, and the more exciting rides, and things get more interesting to you, and you build up a bit of confidence. But you don't say to people, you should never ride the Matterhorn. You should never be homeless. You should never be a terrorist. You should never be whatever you think is wrong. You say, that is their experience. While I'm here at Disneyland, I'm going to experience what I think is fun. And then maybe when I come back next time. Now, here's another thing to remember. You came in with a group of people to Disneyland. You came in with those people. Now, some of those people get tired and they say, okay, I'm done with Disneyland. I'm going to go home. You don't grieve or cry or beg them not to go. You say, I'll see you when I get back. It's no big deal.
Right.
So there'll be those who are ready to return to non-physical, whether they're 2 years old or 100 years old, it won't matter. You will see them. You're eternally linked to everyone you know, and you will see them again when you get back to non-physical. And then you will get together and you'll say, all right, let's try this. Let's try exploring this time. Wasn't that exciting? Look at all that we learned. Look at how we grew. Look at all this expansion that we had. Let's try this next one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tricky to wrap our human brains around this idea of, okay, so if over on that side there is no time, this idea of, it's eternal now. It's like, well, how do you as a non-physical have any experience that is, gives you an experience or a perspective of having a journey that continues to unfold? Because if it's all now, it's over as quickly as it began, right? So there's no like journey to have. And is that the whole purpose of 3D reality, to create the journey element of it? But yet, even if that is the case, there's still some level of experience that appears to be happening over there. It's just hard to quantify. It's like, is it you're experiencing all things all at once all the time?
Yes, we're experiencing all things all at once, all the time, but you can't understand what that's like. So we will say it this way. We are focused here in this moment, in this point of focus. We are also focused everywhere else at the same time. It doesn't matter to us. You have a division of focus. You can be focused here and not focused elsewhere. You can tune your channel to one station at a time, where we can tune our channel to every station at a time. Everything is happening at the same time, and we are just focused where we're focused. Now, we can also create experiences in the non-physical. Let's say we get together, we create a nice little jungle, we create a lion, and the lion comes in, and do you think we're scared? No, we're not scared, because 1, we're eternal, 2, we created this whole thing, 3, we know that the lion cannot harm us. In physical reality, the exact same thing happens. You can create a jungle, you can go out in the jungle, and you can encounter a lion. Now, you can have fear of that lion because you have a survival instinct, and you imagine that being eaten by a lion is a bad thing. And we say, it's no more different than being eaten by the lion in the non-physical. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're just returning to the non-physical. But in physical reality, if you didn't have that survival instinct, if you didn't have that fear, you would dip your toes in and leave immediately. So the survival instinct is a wonderful thing, and fear is a wonderful thing, because it limits you from doing things that are going to return you to non-physical too soon. However, when you try and take those fears, which are irrational, and apply the same conditions you would to the rational fears, well, then you end up limiting your experience of life. And you did not intend to do that. You intended to live the most limitless experience of life you can. And in that, the only benefit of that is joy. Because you expand anyway. You'll expand in your fear, or you'll expand in your joy. And there is no right or wrong way to do it. The only difference is one feels better.
So, another question. This is a perspective that I resonate with, and I'm curious what you'll say to it. Have you ever read, or there's also a great YouTube video short of this story called The Egg. Are you familiar with this by chance?
No, we're not.
Okay. So it's essentially what it kind of paints a picture of is this idea that, it's all you. And, so the way I view it is sort of in alignment with that, or what feels is going on, to me is aligned with that story. So I recommend people checking out. You can, like I said, if you go to YouTube and search The Egg, I forget who the author is, or you can read the short story either way. But essentially this idea that, so the way I view it is we hatch off from source, if you will, as a soul, as a fractal of source consciousness. And then all of the humans are, have a certain, their characters, their avatars with all kinds of potential trajectories, but there's probably not any realities where Brandon Beacham plays center for the Los Angeles Lakers, for example. There's all kinds of variations of the avatar character Brandon Beacham, but that's probably not one of them. So what I believe happens is these pods that break off from source start through this game of evolution. And as we level up, we then come back to non-physical and say, okay, I'm back. I grew this much. Now I'm a vibrational match with the avatar that is, this Viking in the, in the year 1200, or maybe this other character avatar, Brandon Beachum in the year 2018 or whatever, right? And we get a choice as to bodies that we can drop into that happen to be a vibrational match to where the storyline of that character is a vibrational match to where that soul is in its own journey. So literally, I've played all the roles. Like, for example, I have a lot of synchronicity around my birthday. My dad has my birthday, and it's a whole long thing. But I see that as like these energetic ties. Like, my dad's name is Roger. I've probably already played the role of Roger Beachum, who I view as he's very, conservative Christian, very religious in a way that seems, not saying it's better or worse, less evolved. Like his perspective is much narrower, right? A lot of fear and and I'm like, okay, the soul that is in the pod that is Brandon Beachum has probably already played the character of Roger. And at the time I was playing Roger, there was some other soul in the avatar of Brandon Beachum. So we're literally jumping from these avatars. So we play all the roles, and that's how the egg puts it. It's like this guy dies and he goes back to non-physical, and he's asking God. He's like, you mean, and she's explaining this in a sort of way. And he's like, so you mean I was Hitler? And she's like, and God says, yeah, and everyone that Hitler killed. And so like you play all the vantage points, And this is sort of my own, what feels true, sounds true, resonates with me. And so I'm curious, what you think about this idea of how it works.
We would agree with all that. And what we would say is that prior to your birth, you set these intentions for what this life would be like. And in order for that to unfold in whatever way, you created a trajectory. That trajectory included the time and place of your birth, your parents, and the conditions of your youth. So you chose your parents, knowing that your father would instill some belief in you that would cause you to seek more. You had mostly general intentions because you knew that the environment would cause you to expand no matter what. And you were interested in the expansion. You didn't want to control the expansion, right? You wanted to accept whatever was going to happen as best for you. You realized that the universe would figure it out for you. But you chose the time and place of your birth. You chose your parents. And you had maybe one or two small intentions to explore reality in a more nuanced and unique way than ever before. And so let's imagine that your intention was to become a great teacher. Now, that could have manifested in lots of different ways, but in the way it manifested for you had to do with your trajectory, had to do with the exact time and date of your birth and place of your birth. On that day, you were a vibrational match to the earth, so you chose that time very specifically. And it led to the life that you're living now, which we would say, from your perspective of the non-physical, was perfect. But had it unfolded any differently, your perspective from the non-physical would also have been, this is perfect. You see, only in physical reality do you deem to control everything, including your journey in this life and your journey in other lives. Now, let's imagine that the first time you came to physical reality, you came as a single-celled organism, and you experienced what that was like. And you did that, let's say, 10 billion times. And then you were done with that, and you said, let's go on to something else. Let's become an ant. Let's become an anteater. Let's become a bird. Let's become whatever, until you became a human. And then let's say the first many times you're a human, your primary goal was to explore the subject of lack. And so this is the most attractive ride on physical reality. Why do you think the exploration of lack is explored by nearly everyone on this planet?
Contrast.
Well, contrast, because in the non-physical, you can't experience lack. All you can experience is abundance, right?
Right.
Now, we like to say that in the experience of lack, you are actually experiencing abundance. Do you understand how that works?
Well, yes, because you can't even understand what abundance mean. It loses all value. It becomes a non-existent idea or experience when there's nothing to contrast it against.
Well, you gain a greater appreciation of the type of abundance you want. But in the exploration of lack, you receive the abundance of all things that make you feel like you're experiencing lack. You receive an abundance of bills, an abundance of of people that make you feel like you are experiencing lack. And so you're always experiencing abundance. Where are you directing your focus of attention? So you can experience the abundance of anything that you want, or the abundance of the lack of anything that you want. But you can't turn the abundance off.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never really thought about it in those terms, and that's pretty profound. So, okay, so here's another one for you. So I view it as very interesting. So I think of my last experience where I had a business partner who sort of betrayed me in this whole story. It's like, I think I probably already played the role of being in those shoes, so I did it to myself in a sense. And now I'm on the other end experiencing what it feels like from the perspective of Brandon Beecham and played all the roles. So then it gets into this idea of, okay, so when a soul comes into a body, the excitement is it's not completely like destined in a sense that it's fixed. Like the way I put this is our life plays out at the corner of free will and destiny. I believe it's destined because there is no time and it's all already happened. Like the person who, first time I ever had an intuitive reading, the woman looked at me and said, I see you in a cold place like Chicago working in business. At the time I was planning to move to Chicago and work in business, so my jaw hit the floor. We were a long way from Chicago, Atlanta, Georgia, actually, when I got this reading. And then she goes, but there's this whole other path in music in California. And so, what I feel like she was seeing in that moment was potential Brandons based off of my vibration. And I believe there's a version that went to Chicago in business like I was actually planning at the moment sitting in front of her. And then, a year or so later, with the help of some psilocybin, I really started having this awakening and, oh my gosh, I can actually do anything. I'd much rather, do something creative and make music. And then I met someone from California and, here I am all these years later. But so it's sort of the way I view it is your life plays out at the corner of free will and destiny. It's all destined because it's all already happened. There is no time, but free will comes in because you get to choose which version of it all you experience. And, in this case, I opted for the timeline that led me to California. And from this moment forward, there is infinite options, all these options. My aim is to experience the greatest and grandest version, the one that's the most rewarding. And so that's sort of how I frame it. Your life plays out at the corner of free will and destiny in this way. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, we think that's exactly right. That you are a limitless being of pure positive love, and that you are limited only by the beliefs you choose to hold on to. And some of those beliefs you may say are fact. And we say that beliefs are either empowering or limiting, that nothing is fact, that anything can be had, that there is no limitation, that when you release fear, you move to another level. And so that to live this limitless version of the life that you want to live, to have, be, and do anything you want in this reality is through the process of looking at your limiting beliefs and processing that fear, realizing the fear is false, the fear is irrational, the fear is made up in your head, that there is nothing to be afraid of. Now, even your desire to live this limitless expression of life is a form of control. Because you say, the more limitless this life is, the better it is. And we say it's more empowering, more in the flow of how the universe works, if you would release your attachment to anything. And we seriously say, don't think anything's important. Perceive that there is part of you that remains in the non-physical that can see every thought and every desire, knows exactly how to bring you the greatest manifestation of events that will personally bring you joy, personally bring you satisfaction, personally bring you bliss, personally let your talents and attributes naturally unfold. When that happens, you couldn't even imagine that happening, right? It'll be so far beyond what you could have previously perceived. And there's a reason for that, because everyone lives at an existing state of vibration. And that vibration is maintained by what they think is good and bad and the beliefs that they hold. As they raise their vibration, they can see further. They can see things from a higher perspective. But from the lower vibration, all of your vibrations are being raised, whether you consciously do it or not. But some are being raised faster, and some are being raised consciously, and some people are thinking about things internally and allowing things to be as they are, and their vibrations are raising and meeting up with these higher potentials. But as soon as you think that this is the way life should be, then that brings in the possibility of fear, because your life unfolded to this point. Your life is magnificent at this point. But if you thought that business partner who caused you trouble shouldn't have caused you trouble, well, then you're saying, I want to control my destiny.
Right.
Instead of releasing all control and putting it in the hands of the universe. Because that business partner caused you to launch these rockets of desire.
Yep.
As Abraham would say, that would allow you to be where you are now. And without those things happening, you wouldn't be at this place.
Exactly how I see it. And it's interesting to be able to have the perspective of, for me, I have no ill will, or I'm actually, as the Buddha put it to some degree, when you fully get it, and this is an exact quote, but a thank you is always in order, right? It's a thank you is always in order. And it's so interesting for me. That's where I'm at, because I realize what a gift it is and was, and so much good is coming from it several years later. And then you have someone like my brother, whose perspective is a little, it's like he understands a lot of this, but he's also still holds on to an older perspective at times, where it's like, he'll make and he's saying it kind of jokingly, but he'll say, no, I get all that, Brandon. As long as he ends up becoming a paraplegic, I'm good. And it's sort of a joke, and sort of like, I'm really holding on to a lot of resentment still. Right. And so I don't feel that at all. And as a result, I can see the pain that, it's like the drinking poison and expecting the other person to die kind of thing, right?
Exactly. It's having a view of life that things can happen to you. And so you must avoid those things happening to you. And as you avoid more and more and more things happening to you, you succumb to your fear more and more. From your brother's perspective, he looks at what happened to you, and he places himself in your shoes.
Well, he was part of it too. He was like, we're business partners, so it happened to both of us.
And so he's projecting how he feels onto you, and says that if you feel differently than he feels, then he has less control over the situation. And so even in joking, he asks you to feel how he is, so that he can have a little bit more control over the situation. But in the true creator that you are, realizing that these things came to you because they were necessary to cause you to shift your consciousness in a way that would allow you to raise your vibration and become a match to the Brandon that exists right now, the Brandon that prefers to be here than there, even if that had gone on to the same sort of success that this has gone on to, or had gone into something that you even imagine and make up in your mind. You would rather be here now than there.
Right. It's 100% true. And, so much has come that's very closely related to what transpired, with that whole experience that now is like so good and promising. And it would have never happened had that experience not taken place. So I can see it very clearly. It's like, I'm just grateful. It doesn't mean I want to continue. And this is where I think sometimes people, struggle a little bit with this. It's like, okay, but this person still is playing a certain role in my movie, if you will. I had Dr. Eben Alexander on a while back, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with him or not, but the Harvard neurosurgeon who had got meningitis, his brain completely shut down over, one day he's fine, the next he's in a coma, his brain's being eaten alive by meningitis. He came out a week later after they said pull the plug, his brain is fried, and he miraculously remembered his time on the other side. And, he had a very big book and, on Oprah and all these things because he was a Harvard brain specialist who had this experience. And one of the things that he talked about was oftentimes the villains in our stories are actually our greatest allies and friends on the other side, and sign up to sort of play those roles for us.
Absolutely. You see, there has to be a shift in perspective, and everything that happens to you causes a shift in perspective, even if you're not internalizing it. You could not be aware of the laws of the universe. You could be completely involved in control. But when something like that big enough happens to you, you will still see yourself from a different perspective. And that is always good. There is no wrong. And when you say, well, I've gone through this experience, I appreciate him for what he did, I appreciate the experience, it brought me to this new level of understanding, but I wish no more experiences like that ever happen. What you're saying is that you wish no more gifts from the universe would happen. And we want you to see these things as what they truly are, as gifts to change your perspective. Now, here is a little tip. We don't want you to use this as a way to control it. But what we want you to think about is if you have literally zero resistance to anything, you can literally have no manifestation events. You could literally have nothing happen to you. Because in your perception of this event as a gift, you could come to the place of looking forward to it. Now, imagine if you could come to the place of looking forward to a IRS tax audit, or to a lawsuit, or to a breakup with a mate. If you could come to the place of understanding so well that these things, while they seem big in your life, are gifts, then you can know, wow, on the other side of this is even more joy. On the other side of this is even greater expansion. On the other side of this is even a more exciting love life, whatever it is, more abundance, more wealth, more knowledge. We ask you to take the resistance of these events and to change them so that you actually perceive them as gifts. If you do that, these events won't mean anything to you. And then there'll be no reason for the universe to bring them to you, because all the universe is trying to do is showing you a new perspective. If you can get ahead of the game on the first negative thought that comes to you, reframe that thought, well, then it doesn't need to manifest into your physical reality.
Love it. Love that. That is such a powerful tool and perspective that you shared there. I love that so much.
Excellent.
Well, this has been excellent, Joshua. And looking at the time here, probably a good time to bring Gary back and sort of wind down here. Absolutely appreciate you making no time for us here today. And it's been quite the joy to connect.
We would like to say that the joy has been all ours, that our presence here is nothing more than joy, that we have no agenda whatsoever, that we are not asking anyone to believe anything, that we are saying, follow what feels good to you, keep searching, keep looking for things, enjoy the ride. There's nothing serious going on here. You're going to return to non-physical and see the growth and expansion that you had no matter what you did. It's all meant to be fun. And with that, we are complete. All right. How was that?
That was excellent, Gary. Thank you so much. That was a fun ride.
That's pretty amazing, isn't it?
It is. We went deep down the rabbit hole too. So are you a completely I think I asked this earlier, but I don't remember, or maybe you didn't answer. You're completely aware in that moment of everything that's being said?
Yeah, I am now. Like when it first started, I was like in a haze, but now I'm completely aware. What's interesting is that for a long time, sort of just wore off recently, I was super nervous because I didn't know what they were going to say. Like imagine going on stage and not knowing what you're going to say. Not
Right.
having anything planned. Like what if nothing comes out? And now everything just comes out and I have no, I'm not trying to control
you trust
it.
the
So
process.
it comes out a lot smoother now too. And I think it's really fun.
Yeah. Is your vantage point, of course, we all have, I think, a pretty similar experiences as to how our consciousness sits within our body. Right. And, and so is your vantage point altered during this process?
My vantage point is like a listener to this podcast. Like I'm listening to you. I don't know what questions you're going to ask and I don't know what they're going to say. And, I have my beliefs and my, knowledge of how this stuff works. And I'm like, I sort of try and, have my own answers to your questions. And then Joshua speaks and it might be similar to that. It might be completely different. Most of the time it's different, right?
Interesting.
Our friends will when we're getting together, we'll say, what do you think about this? And I'll say what I think about it. And then they'll ask Joshua in a letter something. And it's completely different. It's funny.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Gary, as we kind of wind down here, what is the best way for people to continue to follow your work? I know you have a new program coming out that you mentioned briefly. Maybe you want to share a little bit about that.
Yeah. So Joshua's been going on for 5 years now. In that 5 years time, there's 4 books that are published and one that's ready to be published now. So you can find those on Amazon if you search Gary Temple Bodley. The interesting thing about, law of attraction and spiritual growth is that you can only go so far by reading and intellectualizing it. You have to do a program. And so Joshua had this program that was called the one-on-one, where people would ask 3 or 4 questions a week over the course of 6 months to a year and a half, depending on the person. And those people were doing a daily practice of meditating and then asking these questions and reading their answers. And so they were in this spiritual work that they were doing, and they had amazing results. But I can only do that with so many people. I was doing with 10 people at a time, and you can imagine that's 30 to 40 to 50 questions a week.
It's a lot.
So Joshua came up with this thing called the Unlimited Abundance Boot Camp. It's an 8-week super intensive course that has coursework, has assignments, has homework. It's a daily spiritual practice that you'll do for 8 weeks, 56 days. And it's highly intense. I think that we'll probably spend an hour worth of work a day doing it. Plus we'll have a Joshua live call and a coaching call. And everyone will get together on a private Facebook group and we'll go through this whole thing. We're starting the first one January 7th. But if you miss the first one, you can still come in at the other ones too. So that's called the Joshua's Unlimited Abundance Boot Camp. And like Joshua was explaining, you're receiving abundance now. It's just that you're not consciously directing it in the flow that you want, right? You're limiting it to some extent. And I think what this course is going to do is not only give you the key to engage the law of attraction, to specifically alter your vibration on purpose, but there's this huge revelation that comes in week 8. And for those of you who join this thing, you're not going to understand what this is, but basically you're going to realize that you have a life purpose, and that's going to emerge on week 8. So it's when I saw that, because I just type it out and read it as it's coming out. And when I saw that key of how you go in this 8-week process to not only engaging the law of attraction, but creating this life purpose and really understanding what that is, It's sort of amazing.
You know what I love about this sort of thing, Gary, is it makes me think of Bashar, another awesome channel. And he talks about, I do too. I absolutely love him. And he talks about permission slips, right? And it's like, we're these unlimited, abundant beings who can create and manifest anything. But as we make our way from being, quote unquote normal humans to that reality, it's sometimes a leap to go from, I'm going to get to go from A to Z, if you will. So permission slips being, these whatever we need or story, sometimes it might be a crystal to do something or whatever it is, these permission slips, which are just helping us to come up with a why it will work for us. And that's what I feel like with a lot of these programs. The information is wonderful. And it's like, just by you saying this is going to happen at week 8, you've now created a story. You've put it, people are going to put in 56 days. That's all where attention goes, energy flows. All this energy is going to be directed. And so it's like, it's a co-creative permission slip for people to unlock abundance, it sounds like, and their sort of their life path. If that's, and of course, there's many people who feel like either they want to alter their life path or find their purpose, and so it's a wonderful thing that you're doing. I'm excited to hear how it goes, and it's the first time you've done something like this, right?
Yeah, it's the first time. It's super interesting because I'm just coming out as a spiritual teacher and leader as well. And I've gone through 5 years really realizing who I am and what I want to do and what my passions are in life. Besides Joshua, I'm a passionate cook. I love to travel. I love to renovate houses. And I'm, absolutely adore playing poker. And I live this life now of complete bliss. And as I read week 8 of this boot camp, I go, oh my God, I've done this whole thing. It took me 5 years to get here, but now it totally makes sense. I went from living one way and trying to, change my life through the law of attraction, but getting stuck like so many people do, to slowly doing a daily practice come to where I am now. And I think what people are going to see is, you've gotten to this place. You're listening to Brandon. You're listening to Abraham. You're reading books. You're understanding how, more about how the universe works. And now you're ready to really engage it to make a huge difference in your life. And I'm like getting goosebumps talking about it.
Yeah, it definitely feels good hearing you talk about it. So for those of you who are interested and feel called to participate or at least learn more about it, you can go to positivehead.com/Gary, Gary. That'll forward you to all the information. And then also, Gary, you graciously are going to offer the Positive Heads a discount, right?
Yeah, there's going to be some special thing for all the Positive Heads people. It'll be a discount as well as something else in there too. So cool. I really appreciate being here and talking to your tribe and, letting everyone learn more about these teachings. And those of you who want to explore it, we can go in more depth, but there'll be some big benefit for that. Thanks to Brandon.
That's excellent. You guys know whenever I have someone on and they have something to offer, I always, on your behalf, hit them up for, okay, give my people something special. Give them something special. So I appreciate you doing that, Gary. That's really great. So excellent. Well, this has been so good, Gary. I really enjoyed this journey with you. I do have one last question I'd like to leave you with. Sure. And that question is this. In 60 seconds or less, actually, let me say this. If possible, can I ask the question to both Gary and then Joshua as well?
Yeah, let's try that.
Okay. So you can answer as Gary first, then you can take your 30 seconds and answer as Joshua. And The question is this: what is the meaning of life according to Gary Temple Bodley? What is the meaning of life according to Joshua?
All right, I can tell you my meaning of life right now. So my meaning of life right now is to maintain your like excited state of being, this connected, positive. And when I say positive, I mean that this perception that your life is heading in the right direction. And then when you think it's not headed in the right direction, then you go inside and process that. So it's all about feeling good, receiving inspiration, and doing that which you're inspired to do while noticing that fear is going to come up, but you can process that fear. Okay. That's my meaning of life. Okay. And the only meaning of it is to expand. All right. So let's see what Joshua says.
Okay.
If it's going to be any different or not.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. Ready?
Yep.
We are thrilled to answer this question. From our perspective, the meaning of life is to come in as an aspect of Source, is to understand Source from a unique perspective that's never been lived before, and to realize during your lifetime that life means whatever you choose it to mean. We are complete. Just got goosebumps there.
So good. Thank you for the encore. It's like the band coming back out on stage, right? We got one more song for you.
Yeah, that's cool.
Super fun.
It's so funny.
So good. Well, Gary, thank you. Yes, it is so true. It is so true. And I feel it in every cell of my being. And there's definitely some major gems in this co-creative exploration here together. And I thank you so much for doing all that you do. I look forward to continuing to follow your work and connecting in 3D at some point.
Awesome. I can't wait.
Journey well, my friend. Until next time.
Okay. Thanks for having me.
Well, everyone, that concludes this week's interview episode. If you have enjoyed this positive download from our hearts and minds to yours, please take a minute, give us a rating or review on iTunes, since iTunes is the holy grail of all things podcasting. Your good reviews help us to reach more listeners. Also, before we sign off, I wanted to let you all know that we have finally created the Game with the Universe on our website, where you can choose the first number that comes to your mind, and it'll pull up that episode number of the podcast. I've been saying this is a great way to co-create synchronicity and magic with your higher self for quite some time by doing this manually. But now, if you go to positivehead.com/YO Universe, there is a super fun and simple interface to play this game with your higher self. I firmly believe just by setting the intention to play in this way, it opens up the door for magic, and it's a synchronistic way to hone in on nuggets of wisdom out of the huge catalog of episodes that are specifically appropriate for you at this time in your journey to becoming the next greatest and grandest version of yourself. And it also makes for a super fun way to engage and invite friends, family, people on social media to check out the podcast as well. So be sure to check out positivehead.com/YOUNIVERSE, and be sure to tell all your friends so they can play a game with the universe, which also helps the show to reach new people, which I greatly appreciate. And as a quick reminder, be sure to also check out positivehead.com/transformation if you're curious to learn more about Purium superfoods and why I take them every day. On this journey of becoming the next greatest and grandest version of ourselves that we have all embarked upon, I can't stress the importance of managing your physical vibration enough. And quite honestly, Purium has put together the simplest plan I've found to do so, and I'm sincerely excited to share it with all of you. Otherwise, as you continue on your fabulous journey in this 3D reality, be sure to remember this. As long as you ain't dead, you're already positive ahead. Journey well, everyone, and thank you for being.